are going to start this evening with the reading of the mission and administering the oath of office to our newest board member. And I have asked Michael to start us by reading the mission, and then we'll move right into the oath.
Okay, good evening. The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students.
Thank you. And with that, let's get you officially sworn in as a member of the Intermediate District 287 School Board, if you don't mind standing with me.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll read along with you other than saying your name.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
Mhm.
I
Michael Birdman.
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and that I will faithfully and justly perform and discharge
all the duties of the office and trust, which I now assume as a member of board of Intermediate School District 287 to the best of my judgment and ability.
Welcome. And let's do a round of board member introduction so we know who is at the table. Would you mind starting us off?
Sarah Johansson, Wayzata Public Schools.
I am Heidi Marty, and I represent West Tonka Public Schools.
Hi, I'm Ruthie Dallas, and I represent Brooklyn Center Community Schools.
Hi, Shannon Andreessen, representing Hopkins Public Schools.
Crystal Brackey representing Richfield Public Schools.
Ann Casey, proudly representing St. Louis Park.
I'm Michael Birdman representing Edina.
Jackie Mosqueda Jones representing District 279 Osseo Area Schools.
We are also joined at the table by with Superintendent Marcy Dowd. Board member Michelle Coons is unable to be here this evening. Board member Francesca Pagan Umar will be arriving momentarily. Board member Sam Sant may be arriving later, or he may miss the meeting altogether. So just so everybody has a sense of where folks are this evening. Next on the agenda is approval of our general meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the agenda is. Next is audience opportunity to speak. I do not believe we had any requests for comment this evening. Thank you. We move to approval of the consent agenda containing routine business items. If there is an item that somebody would like removed for individual consideration, now would be the time to make that request. Otherwise, we could entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Ann Casey and a second by Michael Birdman. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for that video. I don't know if you noticed, but I am proudly rocking my South Education Center. Welcome back. Further questions or comments about back to school?
How many new staff were at the New Staff Academy? It looked like a pretty full room.
It was a pretty full room. I'm going to check with my colleagues, about 50.
I think it was about that. I'm gonna say maybe 45.
first few days of the year and the last few weeks have been like. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say we're so excited to see and learn much more in the coming weeks and months. Next is a really important overview for us as board members around the innovative mental health grant.
Session that really impacted intermediate districts. And I can't help but acknowledge the previous superintendent, Sandy Lewandowski, with her advocacy and her continued push to say, please think about the intermediates, please think about the intermediates with funding and support. And so it really is due to a lot of her, this grant came through.
Been in the district before, you probably heard about this grant. And this is a wonderful opportunity that's provided through the Legislative COVID-19 Response Commission. So in terms of what the Innovative Mental Health Grant focused on, in the past, our sole focus was on our therapeutic teaching model program. That is what that $1.2 million approximately covered and supported. The proposal for this particular pot of money was that the $4.4 million, an overview, would be divided amongst the 4 intermediate districts. And they looked at our ADM count to determine how much funding we would receive. And out of that funding, our focus was to really look at the mental health services and supports for our students, as well as thinking about the impact of racial equity in the work that we're doing in our district. So that is what this pot of money is there for. And because we are not CCS certified, we are working with Wilder Foundation as our fiscal host for this money. This money, one really important thing to note, as you probably heard in your own districts with this American Rescue Plan money, is that it's one-time money. And so this anticipated timeline will start in October of this year and sunset June 30th of 2023. So we have approximately $1.25 million to spend. And some of the ways that we looked at what was allowable in terms of the use of the funds. And as you can see, most of the funds were really focused on evidence-based practices. So there's a really heavy emphasis on making sure that whatever we're funding is evidence-based and work that's going to actually be meaningful for our students. Most of the allowable expenditures are salary benefits, but there's also some training and professional development and some supplies that are included in what we can use these funds for. Now, some of the projected budget items are there. One of the things to note is that we did have a number of different stakeholder groups give some feedback about how could this money be spent in a really meaningful way for our students. So we are using the therapeutic teaching model staffing instead of it coming out of other funds. It would come out of this funding allowance. In addition, we had set aside about $25,000 for Project Aware to cover some of the reflective consultation that occurs with the staff outside of their duty hours. This will be a part of this budget. We are adding 2 positions, a restorative practices coordinator to really be a burst of service to really build up our restorative practices work within the district, as well as an equity and inclusion coordinator. The other parts of the money are really focused on some of the supplies and materials that are used at the site level. So sensory equipment for calming rooms and spaces for students to upgrade some of those things that have kind of gone, we've set aside during COVID or things like that. We're also going to increase the amount of music therapy services. We currently have 1 person that just came on board as a music therapist, but we don't have them district-wide or in support. So that will be something we'll be able to provide, as well as drumming. We are really going to do some intentional work around a mental health screener that works for our district and our population of students, and professional development that's really focused on our education support professionals. So as well as the indirect portion for Wilder for grant management. So that's the focus of how we're spending these funds. So our next steps, the grant application, it was a really quick turnaround. It was submitted on September 6th. The state has told us that hopefully it'll be a quick turnaround of notification to Wilder. And once we're approved, we're going to work on finalizing that contract so that we can begin looking at getting all of these services up and going, given that really short timeline. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much. It's very timely because there is very little time. Questions or comments from the board?
I just have one question. This is super exciting, and it's fun to see the different areas that the money is going to.
As you mentioned, some of them are for, this is one-time money, but some of them are for staffing. And so it sounds like maybe some of the positions that you did, we were already budgeting for, but then you can use this money. But what about like that equity coordinator and what's the other one, restorative practices coordinator? Are we posting them as one time, and do we anticipate that we could fund those moving forward, or what are your thoughts about that?
Yes, so because of this, we have a variety of pots of money in some ways with the American Rescue Funds and also with ESSER funds, as well as restorative practices work can be funded out of Safe Schools. We have in the past had clinical professionals that have been funded out of Safe Schools. Given our job market right now, finding a clinical professional is really difficult. And given the heavy emphasis on restorative practices as an evidence-based practice, it makes sense to look at that. So we do believe that within that source, we can look at that over time as not just a one-year position.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for all your work with this. It's amazing. Thank you.
I can't imagine just like having to plug into this very short and very accelerated timeline and then turn around and spend the money, but not knowing exactly when we're going to get like approval. It's very overwhelming. So thank you to everyone who has been involved in pulling all of these pieces together. And we will be eager to hear what the final plan is and keep track of it over the course of the year. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving right along. So next on the agenda, we have a couple of items in the board business section. First is coming back to the face covering policy number 200 that we discussed at our last meeting. Anne, would you like to just briefly overview the changes that people?
About some language that from her district's experience, it seemed wise to add. So basically what we've added is just how the requirement of face covering, should it happen, could come into place.
Okay, did people have any questions about the revised version of the face covering policy HM 200 that we are being asked to take action on this evening? Seeing shaking heads, I'll give another minute. Okay, so with that, we could entertain a motion to approve the revisions to HM 200, the district's face covering policy.
So moved.
We have a motion by Michael Birdman and a second by Francesca Pagan Umar. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the revised policy is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the board report section, I don't have anything specific to share as a board chair report. For the AMSD report, I can just give a preview that there is an AMSD board meeting tomorrow that has two topics that might be of interest to board members. One is an update from Pelsby on things that they are doing to address some of our shortage areas and just some of the policy level changes that they are exploring as an agency. And then the second topic, which is going to be, a good chunk of the discussion, I got a sneak preview of the data today. It's very interesting, is polling data from the Morris Leatherman group who does public polling. And so they are sharing very, very fresh data from surveys that they are doing across AMSD geographical areas, specifically about education, but also about some broader issues that we know affect education and affect our voters. So if those are things that are of interest to you, you are welcome to join the AMSD meeting tomorrow morning. Starts at 7:30. On to district news. There are a number of calendars, as always, in the board book. The one that I would especially point your attention to is the Get on the Bus schedule, so that you can see the current schedule for being able to visit 287 programs and really see what we do in action. The first is on Tuesday, October 18th, the care and treatment programs with a bus leaving here at 8:30 a.m. So please let Wani know so that the district staff have a sense of who to expect. And then I would say the second thing to point attention to is Tuesday, October 25th. Here at the District Service Center is the first of the local 2209 board breakfasts of the year, and that's at 7 a.m. And given how this is phrased, it sounds like it's all going to be in person this year, or will we continue to have a hybrid option?
Maybe we should try the first two as hybrid.
Okay. I support that. It seemed like it was convenient for staff to be able to do from their school sites. I know it was convenient for me to be able to participate from my home from time to time. So I love that idea of starting hybrid and then seeing where we go. Okay, we are going to do once around the table now. We are, I think, getting there in record time. And then we will move to closed session. And we're doing it this way so that basically all of the public part of our meeting is currently being broadcast. And that way, after we conclude our closed session, we can just immediately adjourn the agenda. So with that, are there any items that people would like to share with their fellow board members?
I have something I'd like to share, but also just wanted to ask a quick question about the AMSD. I know that those were also offered hybrid. Is that continuing?
Yes, AMSD meetings are still hybrid.
Okay, great. Thanks. And I just wanted to share, I had a conversation with a parent, Hopkins parent, who also had a student that accessed District 287 services and experienced a hiccup in transitioning to a different setting for their student. But I ran into her just last night out in the community, and she raved about District 287 services, the ways in which this district supported that transition, and how seamlessly it worked out with going to another setting, but also having Hopkins support that transition as well. So I just wanted to mention that we're having big impact on students' lives and families' well-being, and just super proud to be a part of both of the districts that made that happen for this parent.
And I should share, Michael, since this is your first meeting, what's around the table is typically just a time for board members to share information with each other, either related to 287 or related to their home district that may be of interest to the group.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
I will share. I don't normally share too many things, but I know we do talk here about budget and things like that. So something I can share related is that there's a referendum that's going to be on the ballot for Eden Prairie in November. So in the state of Minnesota, public schools are not funded. Since 2003, the funding has not kept pace with inflation. So most districts have a gap, and for Eden Prairie, it's about $2 million. So a lot of districts, they either have to make cuts or they have to put something, levy on property taxes. And so we're bringing two items to the election. One is to renew an existing levy and the other is to revoke and replace. And I think, we talk about budget here. And so this is kind of what's going on all throughout, not just the Twin Cities or Minnesota, but throughout the country because of our issues with how we fund education. And there was a huge surplus, which could have, really made a big difference in this area.
Well, good luck to you all this fall. Are other districts represented here going out for referendums this fall?
279 is going out for renewal of our technology, just a little bit of a bump, and then revoke and replace of our operating levy.
Is that amongst my colleagues on the Edina board, they're very eager and excited to not only have active representation, not that Regina wasn't active, but she didn't have a chance to always come to the board on a regular basis to give updates about what's happening with 287. There's a high level of interest of the current board in Edina to want to learn more about 287. And so my mission in taking this role is to make sure we do that. And so I'll be looking forward to having the chair and our wonderful superintendent maybe work with me on how we can effectively do that. I was talking to some people about that today. And so if the more we can kind of raise that profile, I think is great. And then for those of you who don't know, we also have a new director of special services. and who's very familiar, I'm sure, with this, given where she came from. And I'm excited about where she's going with things to do that there. So my hope is to learn as best I can, but really try to get the Edina group to be more engaged in a successful manner to understand what's happening with 287 and our students, not just Edina students, but all students. And I just want to pass along to the rest of you that my colleagues have made that very clear. That's something they're really looking forward to.
I had mentioned to the group, I think a couple of meetings ago, about an initiative that's taking place in Brooklyn Center Community Schools and dealing with trauma. It's called the Purple Room. And I talked to the student, it's sort of student-led, the initiative, and it was funded by a small foundation. I can't remember the name of it. But I had mentioned to the group I would like to invite them in to talk about the initiative. And so I would like to get with the chair and superintendent and see what is a possible meeting date that we can invite them in, so I can send an invitation to them.
Okay.
If you're still interested,
Sounds good. We'll follow up with you on that.
okay?
Okay, so with that, just a happy first week of school to all, 287 and member districts alike, to our students, to our staff, and to our communities. And with that, we will move, pending a motion in just a moment, into closed session. The school board may hold a closed session to consider strategy for labor negotiations pursuant to Minnesota State Statute 13D.03. Is there a motion to move into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Francesca Pagan Umar. Heidi, were you the second?
Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Second by Sarah Johansson. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. It is 6:56 PM. We will briefly transition the room and then we will begin our closed session. I know.
They won't all be like that.
No, they will not all be like this.
just let a 4-minute meeting.
4.
4 minutes.
Your board
On
meeting?
One item, yeah.
Oh my gosh,
It
what?
was special,
Oh, wow.
we had to have this special meeting because the levy amount,
Oh.
we didn't get the exact numbers from
Oh.
the state, and so we had to like do it, so.
Thank you
And the chair had an emergency, like.
That's amazing.
And half of it was the same meeting without the mics turned on, so I had to do it twice.
I had that, I just did a 5-minute meeting too, or to canvass our election results.
Yeah.
And I, probably half of the meeting was the land acknowledgement, and then we did the vote and that was it. That was it. So,
Yeah, so
it was great.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sarah Johansson and a second by Heidi Marty. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the meeting is actually adjourned at 8:04.
Oh.
Up there,
I was going off my watch. In Richfield, we don't do motions to adjourn, and somebody said that Robert's Rules of
We don't
Order
do it either.
is not required. So that's